Excellent. Okay. How's it going, everyone? This is the very first episode of our short series, Mental Health, Clinical or Biblical?
He loves that title. He's a little too proud of that title.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fire if I'm being honest. But this series is going to be me interviewing Brandon, who you've seen a bit, but this is going to be the most you'll get to know Brandon.
And you'll never see me again. That's what's going to happen.
Alrighty, so we're going to get started. Brandon, what would you say the objective of this series is?
Well, the entirety of this is for us to kind of get a picture of what's important to young adults. So this is one of the few topics that we're going to touch on. Again, today's about mental health. And others may be about different things such as community and things like that. So that's the kind of larger scope. But for today, our purpose is looking into mental health. What is the biblical outlook on that? What should we kind of have as our ground on it as young adult Christians here? And a lot of this is going to be taken from my courses with CBU. I'm doing counseling ministry, also have a psychology undergrad, so a lot of it's going to be coming from that perspective. But yeah, just to get to know what's the difference between biblical versus clinical, where do they work, where do they kind of depart from each other.
Yeah, and do they overlap at all?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're going to be getting into. So this first episode, we're just going to be getting to learn a bit about Brandon's story. He says CBU. If you don't know what CBU is, that's Cal Baptist University in Riverside, California. Yep. And that's where Brandon's currently doing his graduate studies. So Brandon is going to provide some interesting insight because of the story he's about to share us. And this will hopefully help you guys see where he's coming from as he provides some of his answers to our questions in episodes 2 and 3 and 4 if there's a fourth. So Brandon, please do share about your experience with the topic of mental health and psychology and biblical counseling, and how you not to spoil it, but how you saw them conflict at times.
Yeah, so to define terms real quick, mental health we'll be defining as anything. So is our overall well-being of mind and emotions influencing how we handle stress, how we interact with others, how we interact with life. So that'll be our broad what mental health is. So for me, I'm a psychology undergrad, like I said, so I wanted to be a therapist for about 3 years, going on to 4 when I was entering into CBU. And I went into a clinical psychology and counseling ministry program. So those were 2 different degrees. They just kind of united the program in a happily marriage, I guess, of sorts. And from that, I had 4 classes, clinical psychology, 1 class, counseling ministry. Fell in love with the 1 class. I was already working at a shelter, so
the counseling ministry class?
Yes.
Okay.
1 class from the counseling ministry and 4 classes from the clinical psychology. I don't know if I was totally invested. I just knew I was good at it, because I was already working at a shelter. So from anger management to schizophrenia were people that I was working with. I mean, my 4th day of work was breaking up a fight. So, that tells you something of the shelters. But yeah, so my journey from there was getting really challenged about how I saw, I guess, the mental health field interacted with people in general. A lot of it was, and not to do a too broad of an overview, because I think there's wonderful, very amazing people in that field. Even a lot of great Christian people who take the biblical approach and know that maybe it's not the end of the line with things of psychological terms, but I saw there was differences between, do I view this person, as a made in image God, right? Or do I view them simply as a case? So that was where my differentiation was. And going into CBU, I got challenged on that view a lot of what I knew, because I lived, breathed, and slept in psychology, could define the world by it. And I think God was like, I want you to consider what my word got to say about that. So, yeah, and I saw a lot of differences in how do they interact with one another. I think there's a unity that could be achieved through them in terms of knowing that the biblical answer, the communal answer, is the first step we can take. Relational, we'll call it that. is the first step we can take, with the underlying psychology being used as a tool, but not the main go-to answer, which is common in our culture nowadays. So I switched to, I dropped my classes from the clinical psychology course and went to just doing counseling ministry, finished the semester, so I didn't have any zeros or anything like that, but just got to save my GPA there.
So what I'm hearing is the clinical psychology / biblical counseling major that you said they married together ended up becoming a divorce for you.
In ways, yeah. And I don't think that's the case for everyone. I think for me, it was more, I wanted to view things through a ministry lens, view things through what does the church say about it? Because as we're going to get into today, we can be easily dismissive of psychology and say, oh, that's all rubbish, you know?
Right.
Or we can say, okay, where does this fit in the grand scheme of things, as a prescriptive, as a descriptive thing and not as prescriptive per se.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's the preface, I guess, if you will, to this series. That's a bit about Brandon's background and where he's coming from with a lot of his answers. And so in the coming episodes, just to preview them for you guys, we're going to be discussing the difference of body, soul, and spirit. Of course, for those who have any background and understanding of body, soul, and spirit in that theological exploration, there's a trichotomy and a dichotomy view. So
you want to define what that means?
We will when we get to the next episode. And then we're going to be exploring, if you will, there's a far right and a far left. I don't use those terms politically, but just far right and far left on the issue of mental health. And we'll be looking at both sides and then what the conclusion Brandon comes to after exploring these different views. So that's going to be what this series is all about. So stay tuned. If you're watching this and this is the only episode out, hit the subscribe button and stay posted as to when the next episodes are released. But if they're already on our YouTube channel, check them out right now. So we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.